Good evening. It's 7:30 and it's time for Sunset News. In the next half hour, we bring you news, community stories, the weather, economic indicators, sport news, international news, and so much more. First in the news tonight, various types of drugs to the value of more than 3.5 million Namibian dollars were seized in the first month of this year, while the police arrested 150 suspects in connection with drugs offenses. Of these suspects, 139 were Namibians, while the rest included 4 Zambians, 3 Congolese, 2 Russians, and 2 Angolans. Cannabis was the most seized drug, followed by Mandrax. According to the drug seizure and arrest report for the month of January, more than 3.506 million Namibian dollars worth of drugs were seized. Now, employees of Deutsche Welle and the 77% project have been in Namibia since last Wednesday. 77% is a digital format that can be viewed both on TV and social media. As a target group, 77% wants to reach young Africans and offer them a platform on which they can present their ideas and unique backgrounds and engage in a dialogue amongst each other. Now, in Okakarara, this dialogue was conducted in the format of a so-called street debate. The topic was the price of genocide. Can one pay for past atrocities? What's next for the country? A total of 7 participants took part in the debate held in Okakarara and exchanged views on the German genocide and the current negotiations. Now, the nationally and internationally acknowledged geologist Dr. Roy Miller is engaged in an intensive information campaign, which originally started with a number of farmers organizing meetings in Leonardville and Stampriet, during which they voiced their concerns about in situ leaching, a process whereby a Kazakhstani mining company wants to produce uranium through the process of intensively pumping highly toxic drilling sludge into the high-quality water resource that is generally known as the Stampriet Artesian Basin. As geologist, Miller has historically promoted mining, but finds it irresponsible should the company, which is in essence a subsidiary of the Russian nuclear power giant Rosatom, be allowed to place the unique water resource and thus the entire community under risk of being affected by nuclear radiation. Now, the community of Rehoboth is still reeling from shock after a tragic accident in which 3 young men drowned at the Ornab Dam on Saturday evening. 9 young men went for a sundowner ride on a motorboat, which eventually capsized after it ran out of fuel. Indications are that the boat was overloaded. Divers retrieved the bodies from the dam yesterday after a search lasting until almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The police have identified the victims of the accident as 3 close friends. They are Charlton Van Fake, age 27, Rasjiv Dentlinga, also 27, and George Isaacs, who was 25 years old. Now, there was drama at the Oshakati Magistrates Court on Friday when a suspect ran away immediately after being dropped off by police officers for his first appearance on charges of theft and escaping from lawful custody. It is alleged that Thomas Matthews, age 31, was arrested for theft of laptops at Hi-Fi Corp last year, but escaped from police custody. Community Affairs Officer Inspector Thomas Ayambo said Matthews' first escape was from the Criminal Investigation Subdivision Office in Ongwediva when he was about to be charged in October 2021. Now, at a meeting of the Youth Command of the Landless People's Movement held in Keetmanshoop on Thursday, MP Bernarda Swartboy argued that industrial development in Namibia is at the same level as in 1984. The controversial opposition leader's topic was the politics of betrayal. He asked the youth and the public in general to open their eyes to the looting of the country by the ruling elite and said the failure to develop rural areas is the main reason for continued economic and social imbalances and urbanization. Read all about these stories, the stories behind the stories, and so much more in tomorrow's papers. Stick around for our community talk. Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Let's get straight into your community talk. The SPCA recently announced a new initiative, namely the Working Animal Welfare Project, that will help animals in rural communities. Claudia Reiter reports.
Yeah, so I'm Hannah. I work at the SPCA. I'm the National Director here. And today we want to tell you about a really exciting project that we have. It's called Working Animal Welfare Project. What that is that we're specifically focusing on working animals. So that's namely donkeys, horses, and mules. He is not one of them. So we're actually broadening our reach, and what we're really hoping with this project is to alleviate some of the suffering, but also prevent disease and work on educational outreach for working animals in Namibia. So we are focusing on some of our most rural areas where oftentimes there are no veterinary facilities or veterinary care, just to make sure that these animals do receive and get what they need. And we're doing this free of charge. So we have 3 different core methods. So we're working with veterinary services, and that's free of charge. And then we do community outreach, which is skills training, handling training, talking about the importance of keeping a working animal healthy so that they're also a happier animal and therefore a better working animal. The third and last approach is humane education, and that's where we'll be going into schools, talking to children about compassion towards animals, the 5 freedoms, and really try and foster that nurturing way of looking at animals. Yeah. And also, if you don't like animals, you can still respect their space, etc., etc. So that'll really focus more of a holistic approach to animals. He wants to be in the center of attention. And we have identified 3 different routes. So we'll be going as far as Kamanyap on one of the routes, Tumkoi on the second route, and then Maltahe on the third route. We have employed a part-time veterinarian and project coordinator for this project, and we are able to do so because of the support from SPANA. So SPANA is a charitable organization based in the UK. They focus specifically on working animals and working animals around the world. So we have entered a 3-year partnership with them in order to be able to carry this out. So we're incredibly appreciative of their support and really hope to be able to make a difference with these animals. We have a goal of reaching 500 working animals a year. In the first 2 field trips alone, so we go out once a month, we go to a new area or to the same towns depending on where we're at in the project, and we have reached nearly 200 donkeys already. So we're really making progress, and based on the current rates, we'll probably well exceed our target of 500 animals a year. We are also collaborating with local organizations, which is very, very exciting. One of them is NAWA, and we are actually currently out in the field with NAWA and our project coordinator veterinarian. So this trip alone is specifically focusing on fixing and replacing harnesses, and I just got a update from the field. So as of yesterday, they had treated or helped 55 different working animals. Their project is called Project Donkey, so they specifically focus on donkeys. Okay.
It's always a good idea to look out for man's best friend. Now, Emilia Nzuzi, leading the Special Olympics of Namibia Committee, talks to Yolanda Nell on the funding they received from the GIZ and what upgrades still need serious attention.
I'm so excited. Driving here, I already see some changes. I know the GIZ gave funding for you to fence off this area. When did this happen?
It's quite taken us so much energies to secure a sponsor for us to be able to fence this center. And GIZ come on board last year to fence the center for us. The center completed last year, December, with the fencing. And that is quite a great news for us because the safety of our athlete is not much of a concern compared to the past. And this is just a great news for us. And you can see the excitement of the athlete pop in the office to come and check what is happening and so on. And they're just so excited, and we are looking forward for the inauguration for the center.
I see you also have fancy spotlights up at the field. Tell us more about that.
Yes, the spotlight is not really still completed because we are looking for another sponsorship probably to help us with that specific one, because it's a solar ride kind of, and they need a renovation and so on. But however, it will not really, for calendar, it will not hinder the athletes to practice and so on, because normally we use after hours with the light and so on, but for especially for those one are walking and so on. But for the athletes that are not working during the day, they can always come and practice and so on, and the place is safe. Yeah.
Now, as long as you have any kind of screen towards, you have certainly seen our Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So we'll be talking about its ups and downs in our economic news after this break.
We can prevent violence against women before it happens. It means tackling the root causes of violence, working with men and boys to end power over women, which is often normalized and justified. Transforming these root causes and preventing violence needs political commitment and leadership, laws and policies that promote gender equality, investments in women's organizations, and resources for prevention work. But prevention also starts with you. You can start by educating yourself. Speak out when you get a chance. Advocate for survivors' rights and always listen to survivors. Preventing violence against women and girls before it actually happens is the most effective way of ending it. So let's start now.
Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Let's get straight into your economic news story. Despite the spike in the price of Bitcoin by 46% during 2021 and a drop in the price of gold, Simone Storm is still not convinced that the cryptocurrency is the new digital gold. Philippus Usiku reports the price of Bitcoin started last year at $31,702, ending at $46,333 and reaching an all-time high of $67,734 on 9 November 2021. Gold prices have decreased by 4% in 2021, its biggest decline since 2015 in US dollar terms. This has sparked renewed interest in cryptocurrencies and its investment thesis, and since the start of this year. Empirical study results from academia largely provide evidence that Bitcoin does not act as a safe haven or hedging asset in both developed and emerging market stock markets, Simone Storm said. Let's get straight into your economic indicators. The Namibian dollar is up against the Chinese yuan but down against all other major currencies. There was very little movement on the NSX, with all stocks just holding ground. Oryx properties are up 0.1%, and both local and as well as overall indexes moved a little to the positive side. The commodities were a mixed bag, with gold and Brent crude oil moving a little up. Stay with Sunset News. Just now we'll get into your weather.
If you're feeling, I'm feeling, and you know I won't stop. All we gotta do do is take our love to the top. If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop. All we gotta do is take our love to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
This is Sunset News, and this is your weather story. Emergency rescuers were struggling on Monday to reach parts of Madagascar ravaged by a cyclone over the weekend because many roads and bridges were impassable, while rising river levels were threatening to displace more people, officials said. Cyclone Batsirai slammed into the Indian Ocean island late on Saturday, battering the eastern coastline until it moved away late on Sunday, leaving at least 10 people dead, 43,000 displaced, and some towns and villages largely destroyed. Madagascar, with a population of nearly 30 million, had already been dealing with the aftermath of Cyclone Anna, which killed 55 people and displaced 130,000 just weeks earlier, as well as with a drought and food emergency in its southern Grand Sud region. President Andy Rajoelina flew into the coastal town of Mananjari, normally about 500 kilometers by road southeast of the capital Antananarivo. Land routes to Mananjari were cut off due to flooding, and the town was reported to be devastated. Rajoelina said on his Facebook page he was there to show solidarity with people who had lost loved ones and homes, and to see for himself what was needed in terms of aid. All right, let's get straight into your weather predictions. Rain is still predicted for most of the far north except Oshakati, where sunshine is predicted. Khobabis and Oranjemund are both predicted to have a low of 16 degrees. The hottest place in Namibia will be Ariamsflay with a low of 23 degrees and a high of 37 degrees. This is Sunset News. We've touched on African and Namibian news, international news after the break.
We know that violence against women and girls is pervasive everywhere in the world. So now imagine a conflict breaks out, or a natural disaster happens, or a global pandemic like the one we have seen since 2020 breaks out. Institutions are often focused on addressing this crisis. And in conflict settings, some of the institutions that are responsible for protecting women's rights collapse. The United Nations and UN Women work around the world to address some of these challenges. We make sure that women and girls who are victims of violence access services, including justice, health, psychosocial support, and reintegration. We also work to address the root causes that generate violence, for example, addressing harmful social norms and masculinities.
Thank you for staying with Sunset News. Let's get into your international news story. North Korean cyber attacks have stolen millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency to fund the country's missile programs, a UN report says. Between 2020 and mid-2021, cyber attackers stole more than $50 million of digital assets, investigators found. Such attacks are an important revenue source for the Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile program, they said. The findings were reportedly handed to the UN Sanctions Committee on Friday. The cyber attacks targeted at least 3 cryptocurrency exchanges in North America, Europe, and Asia. The report also referenced a study published last month by the security firm Chainalysis that suggested North Korean cyber attacks could have netted as much as $400 million worth of digital assets last year. North Korea has been banned by the UN Security Council from carrying out nuclear tests and launching ballistic missiles. However, the UN report report says that despite crippling sanctions, North Korea has been able to continue developing its nuclear and ballistic missile infrastructure. All right, that was our international story. The sporting world was buzzing over the weekend, so stick around for sports news. As promised, it's time for your sports news. Brave Gladiators assistant coach Mami Kasaona has questioned her omission from the traveling delegation for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers tie against Zambia after just finding out she is not on the list of the technical team that will lead the side against Zambia in a two-legged encounter to be played in Zambia and South Africa next week. I have been part of this team, and today I just found out in an email that I am not part of the delegation, but they have instead put Robert Nauseb there, who was just named assistant coach last week, while I have been with the team all this time, Kasaona said. Why did they not replace me with a woman instead of placing a man in my place? NFA Secretary General Franco Cosmos said that the powers lie with coach Woody Jacobs and not him to choose the delegation. Woody Jacobs, on the other hand, said he selected a technical team that he trusted. All right, that was our sports news story. We've had a lot going on Sunset News, so we'll package it all for you in your highlights after the break. Thank you for staying with Sunset News through the last half hour. Let's get into today's highlights. Various types of drugs to the value of more than 3.5 million Namibian dollars were seized in the first month of this year, while the police arrested 150 suspects in connection with drugs offenses. Of these suspects, 139 were Namibians, while the rest included 4 Zambians, 3 Congolese, 2 Russians, and 2 Angolans. Cannabis was the most seized drug, followed by Mandrax, according to the drug seizure and arrest report for the month of January, and more than 3.506 million Namibian dollars worth of drugs was seized. Now, the nationally and internationally acknowledged geologist Dr. Roy Miller is engaged in an intensive information campaign, which originally started with a number of farmers organizing meetings in Leonardville in Stampriet, during which they voiced their concerns about in situ leaching, a process whereby a Kazakhstani mining company wants to produce uranium through the process of intensively pumping highly toxic drilling sludge into the high-quality water resource that is generally known as the Stampriet Artesian Basin. Now, the community of Rehoboth is still reeling from shock after a tragic accident in which 3 young men drowned at the Ornab Dam on Saturday evening. The police have identified the victims of the accident as 3 close friends. They are Charlton Van Fake, age 27, Rasjiv Dentlinga, also 27, and George Isaacs, who was 25 years old. All right, this has been Sunset News. You can trust Sunset News to come to you just at the end of the day. Maybe you've kicked off your shoes after work, I'm not sure. But from 7:30, we can break down the day and give you just a little bit of what you can expect tomorrow. You can catch Sunset News on all NMH platforms as well as oneup2.com. This is Ashwin Mbedi bringing you Sunset News every evening from 7:30. Please don't end your day without us.